Welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Mr. I'm really excited, as always, folks. If you hear my voice and there's a little extra in it, is whenever I'm speaking to another black man who's an educator. And today I have another awesome educator who I've seen on TikTok and been able to communicate and go back and forth with. And that's Mr. N Teaches. Mr. N, can you introduce yourself to the podcast?
All right. I am Courtney Nunnally. Mr. N teaches on TikTok, and what is it? 17 years in the classroom, all Title One, and I love teaching. It's been my
Awesome.
passion.
Awesome. Similarly to yourself, this is the year 17, or just finished year 17 as
Awesome.
well. And we were saying before the recording started happening, like it's as if being a unicorn, and then you see another unicorn, and you're like, word, I'm not the only one. Say less. It's so good to see you. So I'm really excited about this conversation that we're about to have, and I hope that anyone who's listening to this episode of the Chronicles of Mister, that you're able to pick up a couple of gems. And if you are that black man, because when I started the podcast, we were at 2% of this last year. We are now down to 1.3%. I'm hoping we'll get that above 2%. That is the hope and the dream, that our kiddos and kiddos who don't look like us will get the representation because they need it. Studies have shown that having a black teacher, particularly a black male teacher in front of you, is beneficial for everyone. And so let me just start off with that. It's been 17 years. How did you get into education, or what brought you to education?
Um, it wasn't. I'm gonna say it like this. It kind of wasn't supposed to happen the way it was supposed to happen. But my grandfather would say that it was God's work and everything went the way it was supposed to. Um, I actually was really interested in designing video games. And that was in high school. I wanted to do that. And I ran
Nice.
into the wrong guidance counselor. Um,
Oh,
and they deterred me, discouraged me. You're not good at math. You're not good at so and so. And threw all of the negativity in there. And I was like, well, I want to make educational video games that can help kids, kind of like Assassin's Creed, but without the violence,
yeah.
more so just accurate educational stuff and make it something that's fun. And,
Mm.
she was like, well, you can still help kids. There are lots of different things you can do. And conversation led towards the fact that I love language arts. I love reading. I love writing. And I also love education. I love students rather. So I like working with kids. Um, and she was like, maybe you can still help kids that way. And I said, well, what I'll do is I went to school for education, and the school that I was initially at basically made you have English as your major or whatever other subject. And then
Mm.
education was really just a back shadowing, possibility in there.
Minor. Yeah.
So exactly. And I went ahead and did that. I worked with some kids with on campus in their daycare center, and I thought it was cool, but it really didn't jump out at me initially. It wasn't something that just said, "Oh, this is where we're going." Um, it ended up being something that hit really. I actually almost left education before I even really got into it. I was getting ready to
Wow.
go into social work because I thought that maybe I can help them in their homes.
Mm.
Maybe I can get into their homes and make a change. And essentially, this guy named Lonnie Bonham at Norfolk State University, who is absolutely amazing. He's a mentor. He's not even an educator by trade. He's
Mm.
military, but somehow, he ended up there in that position. And he pulled me to the side and said, hey, look, I think you can make a bigger impact than you think you can make. You're trying to
Yeah.
make a splash in a puddle, and I'm trying to make you make, a huge wave in an ocean. So,
Nice.
and having a conversation with him, he pulled me in, convinced me to go ahead and stay with education. And he told me that it would be different than what I thought it would be. So I started at Hampton, ended up over at Norfolk State for financial reasons, and ended up there where I was supposed to be because state, it does something different, you know? Norfolk State is one of those places where I'm speaking on HBCUs, they nurture you, they
Mm.
build you, and it's not about textbooks and fake possibilities inside of what you're going to be doing later on. A textbook can tell me one thing, but when you have an experienced professional there who truly cares about the impact that they're going to be making. Those professors poured everything they possibly could into all of us and prepared us in a way that whenever I go to a different school, whenever I'm doing a workshop or managing a workshop or teaching somebody about classroom management or mentoring or doing whatever it is, they say, "Well, where did you go to school?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, I went to Hampton University and Norfolk State University, but no shade to Hampton, but Norfolk State
Yeah.
University made me the educator that I am today." And they're like, "Okay, because we everything just feels very natural, the stuff that you're doing. You get compliments and it feels kind of strange because as men, we do automatically a lot of the times get compliments for the way that kids respond to us
Yeah.
without we get compliments without always earning them, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's always it feels good when you have earned it and they see the difference, they see the impact, they see what it is that having a black man in your building can do, especially when they are driven the way that they're driven. So I know that was a lot, but what brought me to education basically was Norfolk State University, Lonnie Bonham. He kept me in it, and then also my mother staying in my hind parts, making sure that I was doing something that was positive. So she was always like, "Look, money is a good thing, but peace is priceless."
Ooh.
So,
Ooh.
and that's real.
Shout out to black women
So,
and shout out to the wisdom that they be dishing out on the daily. Oh my goodness.
absolutely,
For
absolutely.
sure, you, like you said a couple things, said a many of things, and I'm not sure if everyone got them. So I just want to see if a couple things, want to make sure that a couple things stick. Number one, you stating that it was someone else who saw something in you and that gave you that little extra word of encouragement to keep going. And in this case, it was Lonnie. What was Lonnie's last name?
Lonnie Bonham.
Lonnie
Oh,
Bonham,
Lonnie
who said,
Bonham, you got it.
yeah, who said a couple things to you to make sure that, hey, you may not see this or you may not know this, but I can see the potential in you, and I'm going to help you get to where you ought to be. And then number two, being at a university or being in the space where you are seen. It sounds like you going to that HBCU. You were on a campus where you were seen, you were poured into, you were appreciated, and consequently, you were then able to flourish. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about being at HBCU is, like you said, you are seen as not just a black man.
Hmm. Yeah.
When you go to other schools, I feel like sometimes, um, you're seen as a black man first,
Hmm. Hmm.
before anything else, and you can't just, have all those other things to offer. For
Yeah.
the nerd in me, I'd say there was an episode of Static Shock, the cartoon, where he went
Yes.
to Africa and
Yes.
he's, zooming over Africa
Yeah.
and whatnot. And he's calling his boy back home and he's like,
Yes.
"Hey, look, this is so different. There's something about it. Back home, I'm a black boy first. Here,
Here.
I'm me first."
Yeah. Yeah.
They see all of me, not just that first. And
Yeah.
that's what a HBCU was for me.
One, it's a dope episode. Shout out to Static
Oh yeah,
Shock. Um, and two, that it is even this in that same episode, he says to his friend, he's like, "Is this how you feel all the time?"
exactly,
He's
exactly,
like, "Is this how
exactly.
you mean to tell me like you get to feel this all the time? Like you just like you're moving about the world like not having to think I'm a black kid or I'm a white kid. You're just you." And whatever it is
Absolutely.
that you're into, like nothing is prescribed to that. It's just you being you. It's not like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
because he's a black kid, he does this, or because he's a white kid, he does this, because he's a Filipino. No, no, it's just he's a kid, and that's what kids do. And so when our kiddos have black teachers who are present, I see my black boys as just being boys. And I have to tell them, like,
absolutely.
hey, be easy, like, recognize how you're moving your body, like, you know. And so for them to just be that and no malice be attributed to that or nothing like, you're 13, you are not a man, you're a
Exactly.
boy. And I'm going to treat you as such. The manner in which I speak to you is going to be as a boy. You're a kid, and it's not to be shameful about. It's not to like diminish you,
No.
but it's to call the reality of like,
Yes.
yeah, when you leave my classroom, a lot of the times our boys are given the status of men, and it's like, no, it's not
Yeah.
young
Well,
man. It's not.
it's
He's a
almost
boy.
like
He's a
the
kid. Yeah.
it's almost like the privilege of still being a child and being seen as a
Right,
child is stripped away.
right, right,
And,
right, right.
we give them the opportunity to still be that child in that moment and
Yeah,
to simply be, open and vulnerable.
yeah. And whatever that may look like for them to just be, whether it is like yourself, like myself, I've seen your TikTok, so I know that we're kindred in the spirit of like, hey, I'm a blurred. There are comic things, there are nerdy things that I like, and I bring that to the classroom, and the kiddo's like, all right, good, I get to let this part of me be shown and be visible to in the superior space as well too, and it's going to be honored. It's not going to be marked. It's not going to be diminished. It's not going to be like belittle or anything like that. Or if there's someone else who attempts to make fun of me, like I know I have an ally, someone who's like, no, 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 this is not the space to do that. It's never okay, but it's definitely not going to be allowed to slide in this space while I'm around. So
Exactly.
that's something I appreciate too. To the kiddos who are out there, and also to the teachers who are out there, like recognize, yeah, to be able to just be,
Oh
ooh,
yeah.
is a great feeling. Great feeling,
Now I want to
man.
mention something about that too.
Go for it.
When I left Norfolk, I was in Norfolk and it was 99.8% free and reduced lunches, I think. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a true Title I school, um, in a more extreme sense of the term. Uh, and also, there were not many variations in cultures. You had black students and a few Hispanic students that were melanated enough to be black students in that moment. And then we had a couple of white students, but if I'm not mistaken, I think that they were the children of the staff members. So that was about it. I was always wondering, when I left there, I was like, well, when I go to this next school, what is my experience going to be like? And I had a conversation with a brother of mine at that school. His name is Michael Jackson, but he's a brilliant mind, a great mentor, a great leader. But I had a conversation with him, and I was like, how am I supposed to adjust and adapt to being at a school where there are so many different cultures? And he says, deliver the same amount of passion with the same amount of intent, and you'll be fine. He says, that's it. He says, everything that these children needed here is more than enough for the new environment.
Yeah,
So just pour that in and it'll be just fine. And I was a little bit nervous about how I'd be received because, it was a completely different environment for me being over there. I got a chance to, teach a room of melanated faces, and I came
yeah,
to this new district and it was beautiful as well. And not only that, but it was nice to see that we had, in this situation, a more worldly collection of humans. We had
mm,
people who had, lived in Afghanistan, people who had lived in was it people who had lived in what's wrong with my brain? People who had lived in Mexico for some time, people who had lived
yeah,
in Brazil, all over the place, people who had lived in Nigeria prior to being with us,
yeah,
and it was different because every kid in there got a chance to be exposed to all of this beautiful, you know, blending of
yeah,
cultures, you
yeah.
know, and it's not the childhood that I had,
No,
seeing all of that, and nobody was the minority, and that's what
mm,
it feels like in this new school. Everybody's just mixed and blended in, and I
that's
love that
dope.
about the district that I'm currently in.
That's dope because one of the things that I've said to our kiddos, and when they've had the opportunity to experience it, they're like, oh, that's what you were talking about, Mr. P. I've said, look, if you're able and if your family is able to travel and go elsewhere and experience something else. So for like myself, born and raised in the Northeast, from the Northeast going down south, I was in spending time in Georgia for about 8 years. I was like, oh, this is dope. Okay, this is what. All right, this is different. I'm not used to this. This is one isn't what I was growing up with, but this is I like this. And now being where I am, not being out in the West here in California, similarly too, I tell the kiddos and like Mr. Pierre, here we do it like this, and sometimes I'm like, great, it's nice to know that, but to be able to experience something different is the best thing in the world, because then you're like, all
Absolutely.
right, the manner in which I think and see is not like just my block or my state or my neighborhood. It was like, oh, I am a citizen of the world. And I'm
Yes.
not, it's not just about the things that we do here, locally here now in Cali, but it's like, oh yeah, people do it differently in the Midwest. That's okay. They do it differently in the Northeast. That's okay. They do it down in the South different. That's okay. It's not just like, oh, the only, my way is the only way, or is the quote unquote correct way. There's like, oh, it's all right to do it differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you are just locked into like, oh, this is how we do it on our block or our neighborhood or our whatever, and then it's like you get stuck in those particular ways.
But I can say though, I love being this potpourri class is
Yeah.
um, first exposure to a black male educator. You know,
Okay, talk about
I've,
that, sir, because
I've
that's something that you mentioned it in passing, and I'm not sure if everyone picked up on it, but I picked up on it.
yeah,
Like, hey, I started off somewhere where it was highly melanated, and
yes,
therefore a lot of the faces that were looking at me were like mine, and consequently, that's a great thing to be able to have that sort of comfortability of knowing, like, hey, when I say or do certain things, you understand. I don't have to give a lot of explanation, if you will, but then it's a bit more nuanced when the faces are different or the parents' faces are
absolutely.
different. So we'll talk about that, if you will.
So I'm gonna make sure that I lean into this in supreme positivity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we know that Facebook is a thing. We
Mm-hmm.
know that Instagram is a thing, TikTok, whatever it may be, and
Definitely.
people
Yep.
vent,
Yep.
right? They think that they are invincible when they vent. So when I first got here, um, the pages, all of a sudden lit up, and people were sending me screenshots of things that parents were saying, as though they were invisible on the internet. And I heard my grandfather's voice in the back of my head,
Hmm.
you know, saying, show them the correction, don't tell them,
Mm-hmm.
So I would say children in my classroom, every last one of them, they welcome me with open arms. You got to think about it. There are things that are taught, right? And these children, when they came in, even if they might have been a little nervous or, hey, what's this going to be like? Oh, they had a blast. I'm going to be honest with you, just to brag a little bit, because sometimes we have to brag. I
Go ahead,
know
sir.
that when
It's not
kids come
bragging.
into
It's
my
just stating the
room,
state the state. Talk your
oh
talk,
yeah,
dude.
when kids come into my room in the beginning of the year, they don't realize how 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 close we are going to be by the close of the year.
Hmm.
The fact that you're going to call me dad by accident
Ah,
because you're so comfortable,
yeah.
the fact that you will cry in this room because of growth, not because of anything I did, but because of growth. And growth can be uncomfortable sometimes. You will
Yeah.
laugh, you will smile, we will celebrate together. Um, we will journey through this year together. And when you come back and you do your senior walk at this building, provided I'm still here, like I have been for the last few senior walks, um, you know, you have kids that come through and give you hugs, and they say they remember you as a fifth grade teacher. And oh my gosh, when I say that feels amazing, I have to, that feels like it's almost as good as when their parent shows up with them and says, thank you for what you did, knowing that that might have been a parent who wrote something online at one time.
Yeah.
And I chose not to say anything to them. I
Hmm.
chose not to respond or waste my energy on that, but instead to turn it into positive energy and pour it into their child,
Right.
and their child showed them how great this experience was and how wrong they
Yeah.
were without ever having to have the conversation.
Yep.
And I would say that being there and having individuals come in, and you have some individuals who come in and they welcome you with open arms. And I'm not gonna lie, when I got to this building, I got very spoiled. I got very we had a great, not knocking the current administration or anything, but the administration that I came in under, um, they were great. The PTO was phenomenal, And I was in shock to walk in and see parents in the building making popcorn in the middle of the day. You know, that wasn't something that I got at my old school. Um, it was harder, unfortunately, to get them in when they're working multiple jobs and whatnot in that,
Right,
that
right.
environment that we were in. Um, but having that parent involvement, having people come and speak to you and get to know you and whatnot, um, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful, and it still is when we get the opportunity to do so. But COVID has kind of torn some of that down, unfortunately, and made it more
Yeah.
challenging for the current administration to get parents in like they used to be.
One of the things that I heard you say um, is that when kiddos feel seen,
Yes,
I think as a parent, I think that's what you want. You want your kiddo to be seen by their teacher. Not that, oh, Johnny is absent today, but to know, like, no, no, I know Johnny likes Static Shock. I know Johnny likes The Flash. I know Johnny likes this. I know Johnny's been reading this. I know also that Johnny is friends with Raheem and that those two boys have been having these issues. However, Johnny and Raheem have worked it out amicably. They've been able to
absolutely,
see each other's differences. They've grown in this area. This is where Johnny needs to get a little bit more help. If you could get some support here, like to give those specifics and be able to say things that perhaps I would say that the parents know it, but perhaps they just, oh, it's always there. And so they don't necessarily have it articulated the way that you do. But when you are able to articulate, like, oh, snap, you see all these things about my kiddo, that anything that I think for any normal parent or for most parents will just melt away and be like, all right, this teacher, this educator wants the best for my kiddo because of X, Y, Z. They're able to rattle it all off. um, yeah, I'm going to work with them. And I'm recognizing that it's not a competition, but rather the working in concert for the betterment of this kiddo. Yeah, it's going to be a great thing. And it sounds like that's what you are doing at your current school.
absolutely. That's the intention. I know that
Yeah.
one of the uh, teachers from Norfolk, um, Miss Frederica Henderson. She was amazing. Um, she used to call the parents on her cell phone, and I was like, "What are you doing?" But I saw the setup
Mm-hmm.
for respecting her phone, and I saw the line that she drew in the sand for that, and I
Mm-hmm.
also saw the effectiveness of that open line of communication and trust.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I tried it and it didn't work very well. I had a parent try and call me up for a date one time. I was like, no, ma'am,
Mm.
that is
No,
not what
ma'am.
this is for. Uh,
No, 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 no.
exactly. And but moving forward, as I drew appropriate lines in the sand and whatnot, I know that one of the most valuable things has been opening up my phone to my parents. And when I say opening it up, I talk to them initially. I talk to everybody at open house and I say, we're going to close the door for a second because my district doesn't like me to give this information out. If you look at the back board, my phone number is right there in large letters, or large numbers rather. I said, if you look up there in large numbers, my phone number is there. And what I'm going to need you to do is to put that in your cell phone right now. When you see it, I'm not a bill collector. All right, I'm a stakeholder. When you see it, I'm a stakeholder in your child's success. I'm somebody who's trying to help to build them. I'm trying to be team your child. That's the team I'm on. Okay, so anything that I can do to help you within reason, I'm going to do it. If I call you, it's not because of anything personal. It's not because your child upset me. They can't. It's impossible. I'm too happy having my two children at home and my lovely wife. I'm so happy with them. Nothing that your child can do can truly upset me. What we can do though is work on whatever it is that we need to work on. I might be calling you to tell you about something great that they did today. So please don't miss that opportunity by ignoring that phone call. So we have the conversation, we talk about it, and throughout the course of the year, it works really well. And parents feel comfortable calling me, hey, they're claiming that this is the homework, but I know that that's not the kind of homework you give. And I said, well, you know what? It's interesting because I'm going to send you a screenshot right now of what it is that I gave them. And that's what it is. And we're going to hold them accountable. And it's not about them being in trouble. It's about them, making an adjustment. So they're going to shift, they're going to pivot, they're going to make an adjustment, and they're going to do it right. And hopefully next time they won't try and pull the wool over both of our eyes. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I can talk. I apologize. I go. All right. No problem.
And so I appreciate all that you just said about being able to see our kiddos, being able to work and establish with the parents, like, hey, this is a collaboration. Again, it's not, I'm not trying to do like a gotcha, or I'm not trying to quote unquote get your kiddo in trouble, but it's like, hey, I got to communicate with you so that you know what I know. And the kiddo knows that you know what I know, and that we know all the things that we ought to know, so that there's going to be no nos happening. And so being able to do that early, establish that early, is a beautiful thing, because from there you just start being able to rock and roll with your family, with your kiddos, with all the stakeholders, like you just said. I'm not looking what was the thing that you just said? I'm not
Oh, we're not looking to get them in trouble. We're not looking to,
yeah,
we're looking to hold them accountable.
accountable. There it is.
That's
Yeah,
it.
and
You've got
you
it.
being a stakeholder, is just that. It's just that, being
Oh,
held
yeah.
accountable. Was
Well,
this something that you knew from the jump, or was this something that you learned?
oh no, God, no. I was a terrible first year teacher. I was awful. The passion was there, right? The intentions were there.
Yeah.
Um, I had to learn that respect is earned.
Oh,
I
what do you
had to
mean by
learn
that?
it. Well, I think that I thought that I was going to put on my suit every day. I was
Mm-hmm.
going to come in and I was just
Yeah.
going to get the respect automatically because
What?
I was the person who showed up and checked in for them.
Yeah.
I thought that I was going to be the person who, because I worked all night on those lesson plans, because I worked all night on this activity, because I put all this energy, I'm just going to get the respect automatically.
Hmm.
But I failed to see all the people before me who wronged them, all the people before me who set their disbelief in motion. And a lot of times you get students and adults, parents, who
Ooh,
had a poor relationship or experience with somebody who mishandled their trust. So when they
man.
get to you, they have a hard time trusting. It's like a relationship that you get into. If you get into a relationship with somebody and they have baggage, you have to either help them put that baggage down before you move forward, right? Or you have to say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start unpacking it for you. But you cannot move forward with them trying to hold on to what it is that they went through prior to meeting you.
Man, listen, like, you just said a mouthful that I think a lot of teachers need to hear and understand, of like, that was dope. That was dope right there, of recognizing that our kiddos and parents, because I think teachers will understand, yeah, I'm different from your teacher last year, but the relationship that the parent had with that teacher, or the school community, or whatever, that's a
Exactly.
whole thing as well. So yeah, yeah, that's, man,
It can be
that's a
rough.
truth bomb right there. Yeah, that's a gem if you're a new teacher, or even a veteran teacher, like, to remember that, of like, your kiddos and their parents and families as stakeholders are coming in with baggage, and you got to be ready to show them different if their previous relationship was not so great. And if it was great, then it's like, look, my last teacher was like always in communication with me. Look, I had Mr. N last year. He was telling me this, that, and the other. Like, you got to let me know what's up with Raheem, and with Julie, and with Sally, and with Nakisha as well. Like, talk to me. Let me know what's
Oh
what,
yeah.
because that's what I'm
But
used
it
to. Yeah.
also having a teacher like that one time makes teachers become, or parents rather, I apologize. Having a
Mm-hmm.
teacher like that one time makes parents become more vocal,
Hmm.
but in a
Yes.
positive way. Because
Yep.
sometimes, and I'm a parent myself, and I have to stop myself sometimes because there will be things that happen with my daughter at school, and I want to go ahead and immediately take my daughter's side,
Yeah.
but I have to be rational. And once you've had a teacher that's been rational, you find yourself going, let me think about all of the causes that could have, played a part. Let me listen to everybody's side of the story,
Hmm.
and then let me make a quality decision on this. So, but it's rough. It is. Because I
Yeah.
mean, I know a lot of new year teachers, that are first year teachers rather, that they've They've gone through a lot of stress. I've been in, I've mentored teachers before and they've been crying in their room. And I'm like, well, did you do the things that we talked about doing? Did you communicate with the parent before there was a problem? Or is this the first time that you talked to them? You know, did you keep a log of what it was that was going on to protect yourself, or are you just recalling things from memory? Because memory is really deceptive, especially when you feel as though
Whoa,
you've
whoa,
been
whoa, whoa, whoa.
wronged.
Say that again for the folks in the back, because
Oh, memory is incredibly deceptive. It is.
man,
Oh yeah. They'll tell
talk
you in a
about it.
heartbeat, this happened, that happened, and so and so. And it's like, well, here's the thing. After something has happened, your brain immediately starts trying to heal you, right? From
Mm,
whatever it is that occurred. So you got to think about it. You find yourself going, okay, well, what part did the child play in it? Right?
mm-hmm.
Usually you don't think about what part you played in it, you
Yep,
know, until later on when an administrator is asking you, well, where were you? Or
yep,
what was your response? And
yeah,
that's a rough space that a lot of educators get stuck in. And you don't want to throw gasoline on a situation when in
yeah.
all actuality you could have let it burn out itself, you know?
For real, for
Yeah.
real. And I think a lot of teachers need to hear that, listen to it, and remember it. Of like, there are a lot of things. If you have set up the routines and the kiddos understand and know, for me, I'm big on rationale too, like for explaining, like, hey, the reason why Mr. Peter wants it done this way, this way, this way, and you can tell me if you could do it differently, but here's my rationale behind it. All right, let's talk about this. Set up those
Yes.
routines at the beginning of the year, and once the kids have bought in, I'm like, yeah, Mr. Peter, I'm down with this, but I think we could do it this way because of, I'm like, bet. Let's talk about it
Yeah.
as a
Be
classroom
open to
community.
adjustment.
Y'all
Yeah.
okay with this? Okay, so the word is understanding that it should ought to be this way, this way, this way. That we're when we need to get something, we're not just all of us just getting out of our seat. Give me the silent signal so I know
Oh
what
yeah.
you're getting. Cool. All right, sweet. And if we don't do it that way, we're not going to look at Mr. Pierce sideways for when he looks
Oh
at us
yeah.
and like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, no, okay, I didn't see that. All right, oh, my bad on my part. But if you're the one who's in the wrong, you got to fess up to it to him. Like, all right, yeah, no, I was wrong, Mr. Pierce. I just did the da 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 da. Okay, cool. So
But not only
recognize,
that, but not every set of rules is for every class. You
right?
have to change things from year to
Absolutely,
year. I had a
absolutely.
group of seniors come and visit this year. Seniors came towards the end of the year and they're walking in and I said, make sure when you come in here, you're respectful and whatnot. I have no problem with you visiting though. So they came in and they visited my fifth grade class and they were talking to my students. And I
Mm-hmm.
heard one of them say, Mr. Nunnally's letting you do that. He never let us do that. And I said, well, that's because you had different needs than this group.
Yeah.
And there are things that I let you do that this class will never get to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay because everybody has different needs, everybody has different levels of comfort. I had to back off of my poetry in the classroom this year a little bit because they
Mm.
weren't prepared like I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
And it's okay. They were prepared for a different style of teaching. But I love folding poetry in whenever I possibly can because it's one of my passions. And if I can get it in there, if I can go ahead and fold a little bit of poetry into something, if I can
Yeah.
get you on at a podium and get you speaking and get you feeling confident, whew, we're gonna do it. We
Let's
will
talk
do it.
about it.
So I
That's
try it
what's up.
every year, but there are some groups where I'm like, oh, we're going all the way. We're making a book.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some years where it's like we're gonna dabble. we're,
Yeah.
we're we're just gonna sprinkle it. We're gonna fold it into some things. You know?
Yeah, and that's dope in understanding that just because something worked with one group of kiddos, that it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to translate to another group of kiddos. That's a totally different set of kiddos that, yeah, you're going to have to be flexible in, oh,
Oh yeah,
this worked, but this didn't work. Let me tweak it this is how it's going to be different. And knowing that that is okay.
exactly.
Just because something worked or just because something didn't work for a group of kids doesn't mean that it's never going to work for another group of kiddos.
I had a group
That's
one year
dope.
that was in no way, shape, or form into any of my comic book stuff. And I
Mm.
was like, who gave me this class? Who's setting me up? You guys don't
Yeah.
like anything that is
Yeah.
animated, anything that is. It's like, who gave me these adults?
Right, 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 right. Speaking of comic books and literature and things that folks like to read, is there a book that you're reading at the moment or a book that you would recommend?
So I'm going to say two things. One on a
Okay.
more serious note,
Yep, yep.
and one on the less serious note. Um,
I love the balance. Yeah, good.
so the more serious note, there's something called POTS, and it's Peace Overthrown Storms. Yeah, Peace Overthrown Storms, and it's by Gye. He actually goes by Jenna May, but Gye, and he actually gave his mother credit on the book as well, Gail L. Bynum, and put simply, it's poetry, but on a deeper level, it's like a collection of fears, fancies, battles, foes, and everything else. It's everything he's ever been afraid of. It's
Hmm.
everything he's been fearless enough to accept, and it's a full journey. But he's a great spoken word artist. He's a great writer, and I was lucky enough to know him, and call him my brother in poetry. But he's a great person, great human
Dope.
being, and it's one of my favorite books. So and it's not because I know him. Like he's just it's good. I'm like, why is it so
That's a
good?
bonus.
It's one of
That's a
those moments
bonus.
where like, and I think only our people. I mean, I'm sure somebody else does it, but I know our people sometimes will look at each other and when you're really close with somebody, you're close because they'll do something so good that you look at
Yeah.
each other and you go, I hate you. Why are you why are you so good at this?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, but
Yep.
he's great. So, but there's that, and then the other thing that I don't know, it rocked my spinal cord was Ronin, the last Ronin.
Okay.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the last Ronin. I'm a Ninja Turtle kid,
Oh yeah.
and I sat there and read the whole thing from front to back in one night. And I got the book or whatever, and I was like, oh, this is good. So I
Nice.
was like, nah, I got to get some collectibles to go along with it. But
Amen. Amen. And
yeah,
I'm looking forward to, as you said, TMNT, the next that new one, the Rise of the Mutants that's coming out.
oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
first things first, who would have known that they had an origin story like that?
Right. Right.
So I was like,
Yeah.
this feels more appropriate in an origin. So,
The thing I appreciate about this iteration of it is like this is the first time, at least for me, that I'm like hearing them. I'm like, yeah, y'all sound like kids. Like
yes,
the other Ninja Turtles from the live action with Vanilla Ice back in the day, I'm like, y'all are grown men. Like
grown
this to
men.
me does not
Yes,
sound like
you
teenage
got it.
mutant Ninja
I felt
Turtles.
like they voted and they had responsibilities.
Yeah, like this sound.
Yes,
It sounds like, and from the trailer that I've seen, like, all right, you sound like kids, and like that to me, I'm just like, dope, good, good,
yeah.
good.
That's what they're supposed. They're Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yeah,
Turtles. That's what
yeah.
they're
So
supposed to be.
they're supposed to be doing stuff that a teenager would, not grown men. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to that. If we were to ask Mr. N to come up with a playlist with at least 5 songs or 5 artists, 5 CDs, 5 albums for kiddos who are still young, they had these things way back in the day called records that you play them on the 45s or whatnot. Don't scratch it. Um, if you were to make your own playlist, what would the playlist consist of right now? Knowing that, of course, music is fluid, so it could change next week, the next day, or next hour, depending on your mood. But at the moment, what would be on your playlist?
So reluctantly, I'm going to give you five,
It could be more. I say
because
at least 5 to the guest.
because we okay. So I'll tell you what. Then I'll lead in with the honorable mentions.
Okay, okay.
Okay, honorable mention, Bilal, Queen of Sanity.
Good one,
Uh,
good one.
that's a song I can listen to on any given day when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when I'm thinking about how great my wife is, all of that. Queen of Sanity is amazing. Bilal, he has a voice that's just it's unique. Um, Most recently, Summer Walker, Pull Up, and I know that most guys probably wouldn't go. Why would you choose that? First things first, get off of my back, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There is a moment towards the end of it where she goes, "You got to be careful. You a black man." And when
Mm,
she says it, the way she
mm.
said it, I was like, "That's
Yeah.
Karen. That's concern. Thank you very much for telling me to be careful on my journey."
Ooh, yes. Yes.
But and the way that's how she said it. And when she
Yeah.
said it, I laughed literally out loud while listening to it. but I felt it in my spirit because I know that there were times when my wife and I were dating and we'd be away from both of our domiciles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be on the way back to where I'm supposed to go after dropping her off,
Yeah.
and there was such a certainty in
Yeah.
the importance of my safety on the way home. She understood it. Not only did
Yeah.
she understand it, but she wanted it because she saw me as a part of her future. You know,
Yeah.
so even though the song is simple, there was a piece in there that was deeper to me. So
Yeah.
October London is definitely though a strong one. It's called not Black, sorry. It's called Back to Your Place. October London, Back to Your Place. He sounds like Marvin Gaye on that song. If there ever was a spirit that sounded like Marvin Gaye that wasn't him, that is October London. And he doesn't always sound like Marvin Gaye. He's kind of like
Yeah.
how Jamie Foxx in comedy is a chameleon, right?
Ah, okay.
October London sounds like so many people. It's insane, but
Mm,
he perfectly capsulated Marvin Gaye's voice on this song.
got it.
Tank and the Bangers, Human. Tank and the Bangers, first off,
Ooh, yes. Yes. Dope, dope song.
perfection,
That whole collective.
perfection.
Oh my goodness,
Yes,
yes.
perfection. And
Yeah.
Human feels so good. Human, I play in the car when my kids are there.
Mm,
You feel me? And
mm-hmm.
it's an uplifting song. It feels good. And since we're talking about people that make you feel good, I'd have to say PJ Morton.
Ooh, okay.
PJ Morton, he has a song called First Began, the
Yeah.
live version.
Okay.
The live version, oh my goodness. I could really do his entire live CD. But that First Began,
Yeah.
yeah. He talks about the concept of, you know, if I were to die, you know, I'd hope that we would, it would bring me back to life and we would be right the way we were when we first began.
Mm,
But I was feeling that. Um, there's a gentleman named Monty Banks.
okay.
I think I'm up to like six now. I think I'm up to six.
Keep it going. Keep it going, bro.
Monty
Keep it
Banks, and
going.
it's Moni Banks.
Mm,
Monty Banks, all one word. He has a song called Controlled Substance. Now, this is not a song that I'm supposed to be picking as a teacher or whatever, right? And it's not about, it's not about controlled substances. He is the
yeah, yeah.
controlled substance, but the song, the lyricism, the the engineering behind the
Mm,
beats, like you see the face, like
yeah, yeah.
like
Sensational.
every time I hear it, like I find myself going into work, and I'm going into work to mold and shape young minds, right?
Yeah.
But when you need to dig deep and get that energy, man, Monty Banks, Controlled Substance, it's real. It's like that.
Nice.
And I have
Nice.
one last one, I promise. One
It's
last
all right.
one. And it was gonna be. I almost went for Jadakiss and Fabulous, and I was like, you know what? You know, Black Renaissance,
Mm,
and the lyricism on that is, what Black Thought does to words, you
look,
know?
that man easily top
Yeah,
five lyricist. I don't care what list you're coming up
absolutely.
with. Black Thought has got for me. Black Thought has got to be there, and Talib Kweli's got to be there. I put Most Def, Yasin Bey in parentheses. That
Yeah,
those three for me. I'm like, I don't care who you're talking about, but that's got to be for
absolutely.
me. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, dope,
Anytime
dope.
that they fold words, it's it's something else. It is
Mm-hmm.
something else.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Dope.
Oh man.
Dope list, dope list. Look, if there's more, send it to me. This will be on Spotify. We'll make sure that we get the playlist up so that folks can listen to it as well. Folks, this has been another dope conversation. I also know that this won't be the last time that Mr. N teaches his hair because he was teaching during this episode. He was teaching. He put his foot in it. And I hope that you were able to glean a couple gems. I know for myself personally, just that authenticity to be able to be you and be seen, and for your kids, for that to be reciprocated, for your kids to feel that, and then for their parents to know that you see their kids and appreciate their kids and that you are helping bring them up and lift them up is what I took from this particular conversation with Mr. N Teaches. So folks, I'm Mr. Pierre. He's Mr. Ed
I've got
Teaches.
to stop you. I've got to
Oh,
stop you.
go
I
ahead, sir. What's up?
apologize. I know that you had a wonderful closing, but I have to say one more thing to you today.
Go for it, sir. Go for it.
You said something about being seen, and it made me think about one thought, just one more thing.
Go for it.
Um, so like you asked about what the why was
Mm-hmm.
in the the email and whatnot,
Yeah, yeah.
and it makes me think about the unseen harvest.
Mm.
When we talk about what we do as educators, we seed. All day long we seed, and we don't know what's going to bloom and what's not. We don't know. We seed, we water, we take care of the soil, we try and make sure everything's right. And as they go through life, whatever's going to happen is what's going to happen. But hopefully what we put into them, actually pushes them the right way. And when I talk about the unseen harvest, I'm talking about, kids, you hearing about something later on, or them having an effect on another person, and that person going, where did you learn that? And they might not even be able to recall. They're like, I don't know, but I like it. It's in me.
Yeah.
And it feels good. I think about like Lonnie Bonham. I hope that I'm his unseen harvest.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about Frederica Henderson. I hope I'm her unseen harvest. I talk about Michael Jackson over at Young Park Elementary. I hope that I'm his unseen harvest. All these people who poured into me, even as an educator who's always learning. Um, I hope that these kids that we touch every day, um, they get something from being around us. I hope that they get something that folds into somebody else. I want that cup to fill up so much that it spills over, and somebody's like, "Hey, you got that on me,"
Overflows.
but it's nice. So yeah,
You
the unseen harvest.
you are absolutely correct, because I've often said that we are farmers of the futures as educators. That I may not see
Yes.
the fruits of my labor, this quarter, this semester, even this year. It may be 2, 3, 4, 7 years later that a kiddo will say like, "Hey, Mr. Pierre, thank you very much for dot 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 dot. Hey, Mr. Pierre, your class was the one that really sort of put me on this path to become an engineer, or really like know that, oh, it wasn't that I didn't like math. I just didn't see myself and math having some sort of relationship, and you helped me with that." So I definitely agree with you in terms of making sure that we recognize as educators that that's what we are. We may not see the harvest. We are farmers of the future, that it may not always come to fruition immediately. And as you mentioned, we ourselves are the fruits of folks who have put and poured so much into us. So you mentioned Lonnie, you mentioned MJ, you mentioned the other queen who helped you. I recognize for myself too that I had a Dr. Rebecca Good who poured into me. I had a Serena Johnson who poured into me. I had a Kiana Blackwell who poured into me. My
Oh
wife has
yeah.
always poured into me as well. Can't leave her out, to know that I
Oh
am
yeah.
the
I was
educator
gonna say
because
Wendy
of.
Flores, my mother.
Whoo, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So making sure that we give flowers when we recognize it, make sure that we articulate it. So thank you for pausing me to make sure that you were able to give the flowers to the folks who poured into you, and so that it made me also reflect to articulate and verbalize the flowers to the other individuals as well who poured into me. So thank you for that, sir. And
Absolutely.
folks, that's it. That's what it's about. That's what this podcast really is for, is to make sure that if you are in this field, that yeah, you are seen, that you are appreciated. And if it's not verbally said to you on your campus, please come back to this show. You will hear it over and over again. And thank you very much for all that you're doing for our kiddos. So we good? I'm Mr.
Oh yeah.
Pierre. He's Mr. N Teaches. And this has been another episode of Chronicles of Mr. We're out.